There is a man I know who eats breakfast alone every morning at the same table he has eaten at for 41 years. The table seats four. It used to be full. His wife sat across from him, his two daughters sat on either side, and every morning that table was alive with noise. Spoons clinking against bowls, voices talking over each other, someone laughing about something that happened at school, someone complaining about something that didn't matter but felt like it mattered because they were young, and everything feels like everything when you're young. That table was the center of his world for 20 years, and now he sits there alone. His wife passed 6 years ago. His daughters live in cities he has only visited twice. They call sometimes, not as often as they used to, not as often as he needs them to. And every morning he sits at that table with one cup of coffee and one plate, and the silence that has replaced everything he loved. He doesn't complain about it. He never says, "I'm lonely." He never says, "I need someone to talk to." He just sits there, and the quiet eats him alive from the inside out. I know this man. I see him almost every week, and every time I see him there is a little less of him. Not physically, spiritually. The light that used to be in his eyes is dimming, slowly, steadily, the way a candle dims when it's running out of wax. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Because in this world, an old man sitting alone at a table is not a tragedy. It's just Tuesday. That is what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk about something that is happening all around us, in every town, in every neighborhood, on every quiet street where the curtains are always closed and the porch light is always off. Older people are disappearing, not dying, disappearing. They are still here. Their bodies are still in those houses. Their hearts are still beating, but they have become invisible. The world has moved on without them, and nobody looked back to see if they were keeping up. And they weren't. They aren't. They are falling behind, falling into silence, falling into a kind of loneliness so deep and so quiet that it doesn't even have a sound. It's just absence, the absence of voices, the absence of touch, the absence of someone looking at you and seeing you, really seeing you, not as an old person, not as a problem, not as a responsibility, but as a human being who still has a heart that needs connection the same way lungs need air. I have lived long enough to understand something about loneliness that younger people don't understand yet. When you are young and you are lonely, the world feels temporary. You know that tomorrow could bring a new friend, a new love, a new beginning. The loneliness hurts, but it doesn't feel permanent because your whole life is still stretching out in front of you like an open road. But when you are old and you are lonely, the road behind you is long and the road ahead is short and you can see the end of it. And the loneliness doesn't feel temporary anymore. It feels like this is it. This is how it's going to be. This silence, this empty house, this phone that doesn't ring, this mailbox that only has bills and advertisements from people trying to sell you things you don't need. This is the rest of your life. And that realization that this might be all there is one of the heaviest things a human being can carry. I have seen it break people who survived wars. I have seen it defeat people who raised families and built businesses and weathered every storm life threw at them. They survived everything except the silence. Let me tell you how it happens, because it doesn't happen overnight. Nobody wakes up one morning and finds themselves completely alone. It happens in stages. It happens so slowly that you don't even notice it until it's already done. The first stage is the children leaving. And that's normal. That's healthy. That's what children are supposed to do. They grow up and they go out and they build their own lives. And you're proud of them for it. You raise them to be independent, and they are, and that's a good thing. But the house gets quieter. The dinner table gets smaller. The phone calls that used to come every day become every few days, then every week, then every other week. And you tell yourself it's fine. They're busy. They have their own families now. They have jobs and kids and mortgages and 1,000 things pulling at their time. You understand. You don't want to be a burden. That word, burden. It's the most poisonous word in an older person's vocabulary, because the fear of being a burden is what keeps them from reaching out. It's what keeps them from calling their daughter at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night just to hear her voice. It's what keeps them from saying, "I'm lonely, please come visit me," because they don't want to be the needy parent. They don't want to be the weight that drags their children down, so they stay quiet, and the quiet becomes their coffin long before the real one does. The second stage is the friends. When you're in your 40s and 50s, you have a circle. People you've known for decades, people you worked with, people you raised your kids alongside, people who showed up at your barbecues and your birthday parties and your hospital rooms. And that circle feels permanent. It feels like those people will always be there, but they won't. Some of them move away. Some of them get sick and can't get out anymore. Some of them pass. One by one, the chairs around you empty. And each time one empties, the world gets a little smaller, a little quieter. You go to more funerals than weddings. You hear more bad news than good. And every time the phone rings and it's someone telling you that another old friend is gone, a part of you goes with them. Not because you died, because a piece of your history died. A person who remembered you when you were young, when you were strong, when you were full of fire and foolishness and hope. That person is gone now, and with them goes a version of you that nobody else remembers. That is a kind of grief that young people cannot understand. It is the grief of being the last one standing, the last one who remembers the way things were, and having nobody left to say, "Do you remember when?" The third stage is the body. Your knees don't work the way they used to. Your back won't let you drive for more than an hour. Your eyes make it hard to drive at night. Your hearing makes it hard to follow conversations in noisy places. And slowly, without deciding to, you stop going out. You stop going to the diner where you used to meet your friends for coffee. You stop going to the community events. You stop going to church. Not because you lost your faith, because the pew is too hard on your back, and the parking lot is too far from the door, and the sermon is too hard to hear, and by the time you get home you're so exhausted that all you can do is sit in your chair and wonder why you bothered. The world becomes the size of your house, and then the size of your living room, and then the size of the chair you sit in every day, staring out the window at a world that is moving on without you. And the fourth stage, the one that nobody talks about because it's too painful to say out loud, is acceptance. The older person stops fighting it. They stop hoping the phone will ring. They stop expecting visitors. They stop waiting for an invitation. They accept that this is their life now. Quiet mornings, quiet afternoons, quiet evenings. The television on just to hear another human voice, talking to the cat because the cat is the only one who still comes when they call. Lying in bed at night, listening to the house settle and creak and wondering if anyone would notice if they just didn't wake up tomorrow. That is not living. That is existing. And there are millions of people in that fourth stage right now. Tonight. In houses all around you. In apartments. In assisted living facilities where the hallways are clean and the meals are on time, and nobody has had a real conversation in weeks. In our tradition, this could never happen. And I don't say that with pride. I say it with grief, because it means the modern world has lost something that our people knew was essential to survival. In our tradition, the elders were never alone. Never. It was not possible, because the community was built around them. The elders lived at the center of the village, not at the edges. The young people came to them every day. not out of obligation, out of need, because the elders had what the young people wanted: wisdom, stories, knowledge of the old ways, the ability to see patterns that younger eyes couldn't see yet. An elder in our tradition was the most visited person in the community. Their fire was always lit. Their door was always open. There was always someone sitting with them, talking, listening, learning. And that constant flow of people, that constant connection, that is what kept them alive. Not medicine, not exercise. People. Human connection is the oldest medicine on earth, and we have stopped giving it to the people who need it most. I want to talk about something that makes this worse: technology. Now, I am not against technology. I understand that it connects people in ways that were not possible before. But it has also done something terrible to older people. It has replaced real connection with the illusion of connection. Your children think they are staying in touch because they send you a text message with a heart emoji. Your grandchildren think they are connecting with you because they liked your photo online. But a text is not a conversation. A like is not a visit. A voice message is not the same as a voice in the same room. And what has happened is that the younger generation has convinced themselves that these digital crumbs are enough. That sending a quick happy birthday message is the same as showing up with a cake. That a 2-minute phone call while they are driving somewhere is the same as sitting down for an hour and listening to your stories. It is not the same. It is not even close. An older person does not need your thumbs on a screen. They need your eyes on their face. They need your body in the chair next to them. They need to feel the warmth of another human being in the room. That is connection. Everything else is a shortcut. And shortcuts are killing the people who gave you everything. There is also something about the modern world that makes it harder for older people to reach out and find new connections. The world is built for the young now. Everything moves fast. Everyone is busy. The places where people used to gather naturally, the barber shops, the diners, the front porches, the church halls, those places are disappearing. They are being replaced by screens and delivery services and drive-thrus, where you don't even have to look another human being in the eye. And for an older person who is already struggling with mobility, who is already dealing with hearing loss or vision problems, who is already feeling like they don't belong in this fast, loud, new world, the barriers to connection are enormous. It takes courage for an 80-year-old to walk into a room full of strangers and try to make conversation. It takes courage to call someone you haven't spoken to in years and say, "I just needed to hear a voice." It takes courage to admit that you are lonely in a world that tells you loneliness is a personal failure, something you should be able to fix by keeping busy or staying positive or getting a hobby. But loneliness is not a personal failure. It is a societal failure. It is what happens when a community forgets to take care of its oldest members. When a civilization decides that productivity is more important than connection. When a world moves so fast that it leaves its wisest people behind in the dust. I knew a man named Frank who lived alone in a small apartment after his wife passed. Frank was 78. He had been a teacher for 35 years, a good one, the kind of teacher that students remembered 20 years later, the kind that changed lives without ever knowing it. After his wife died, Frank tried to stay connected. He went to the senior center a few times, but he said it made him feel worse. Everyone there was talking about their ailments, their medications, their doctor visits. And Frank didn't want to sit in a circle and compare diseases. He wanted to talk about books, about ideas, about the world, about the things that had made him feel alive for 78 years. But there was nobody to talk to about those things. His colleagues had scattered. His old students didn't know how to reach him. His neighbors were polite but distant. And Frank, this brilliant, warm, fascinating man spent the last 3 years of his life having his deepest conversations with the woman at the grocery store checkout counter. 2 minutes of small talk. That was the highlight of his day. 2 minutes. 3 times a week. That was all the human connection Frank had. And when he passed, the grocery store woman was one of only 11 people at his funeral. 11 people for a man who had touched thousands of lives. That is the world we have built, and it should break every single one of our hearts. I want to talk directly to the children and the grandchildren for a moment, because I know some of you are watching this and I need you to hear something. Your mother is lonely. Your father is lonely. Your grandmother is sitting in a house right now wishing you would call. Your grandfather is eating dinner alone again tonight and pretending he doesn't mind. They will never tell you this. They will never say the words, because they love you too much to make you feel guilty. They would rather suffer in silence than add one more thing to your already full plate. And that is the cruelest part of all of this. The people who need connection the most are the ones least likely to ask for it, because they spent their whole lives giving. They spent their whole lives being the strong ones, the providers, the protectors, the ones everyone else leaned on. And they don't know how to lean on anyone else. They don't have the practice. They don't have the permission, or at least they don't think they do. So they sit, and they wait, and they hope, and slowly, quietly, they fade. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to move back home. You don't have to rearrange your entire life. But you can call. You can call on a Tuesday afternoon for no reason at all and say, "I was just thinking about you. How are you doing?" Do you know what those words would mean to someone who hasn't heard them in weeks? Do you know what a 15-minute phone call can do for a person who has spent the entire day in silence? It can save their life. I am not being dramatic. I am being literal. Studies have shown that loneliness is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It raises blood pressure. It weakens the immune system. It accelerates cognitive decline. It increases the risk of heart disease and stroke and depression. Loneliness is not just sad, it is lethal. And a phone call is the antidote. A visit is the cure. Your presence, even for 20 minutes, even once a week, can be the difference between your parent fading away and your parent holding on for another decade of life that still has meaning and warmth and connection. I want to tell you about a woman named Dorothy who lived 3 houses down from me. Dorothy was 82, and she lived alone after her husband passed. Her children lived out of state. They sent her money every month and called every couple of weeks and thought they were doing enough. Dorothy never complained. She always said she was fine. She always said she had everything she needed. But I would see her sitting on her porch every afternoon looking down the road like she was waiting for someone. And one day I walked over and sat with her. I didn't bring anything. I didn't have a reason. I just sat down and said, "Dorothy, tell me a story." And her eyes lit up like I had given her a gift. She talked for 2 hours straight. She told me about meeting her husband at a dance in 1963. She told me about the time her youngest son got lost in a department store and she thought she was going to die from fear. She told me about her mother's recipe for cornbread that she still makes every Sunday, even though there's nobody to eat it but her. She talked and she laughed and she cried and she was alive. Fully, completely alive. For 2 hours on a Tuesday afternoon, because someone sat down and said, "Tell me a story." I started visiting Dorothy every week after that, and other people in the community noticed and started doing the same. Pretty soon, Dorothy's porch was a gathering place. People would come by just to sit and listen to her talk. Kids from the neighborhood would stop on their way home from school. Young mothers would bring their babies. And Dorothy, this woman who had been fading, who had been dimming like a candle running out of wax, she bloomed. She became the heart of the neighborhood, not because she changed, because someone finally gave her what she had been missing: an audience, a witness. Someone to receive the love and the wisdom and the stories that had been building up inside her with nowhere to go. Dorothy lived to be 94, 12 more years of stories, 12 more years of laughter on that porch, 12 more years that almost didn't happen because she was too proud to say she was lonely, and everyone around her was too busy to notice. That is the tragedy I am talking about. It's not that older people are alone. It's that they are surrounded by people who could change that and don't. Not because those people are cruel, because they are distracted, because they are caught up in the rush of their own lives, and they have forgotten that the person who gave them that life is sitting in a quiet house, wondering if anyone remembers they exist. You were someone's whole world once. You were the reason your mother woke up in the morning. You were the reason your father worked a job he hated for 30 years without complaining. You were their purpose. And now they need you to remember that. Not with money, not with gifts, with your time, with your voice, with your presence. That is all they have ever wanted from you. Not your success, not your achievements. You. Sitting across from them at a table that used to seat 4, filling the silence with your voice, reminding them that they are still here, that they still matter, that somebody, even if it's just one person, still calls. My grandmother told me something when I was young that I didn't understand until I was much older. She said, "One day you will realize that the richest person in the world is not the one with the most money. It is the one with the most people sitting around their fire." At the time, I thought she was just being sentimental, but now I know she was telling me the deepest truth about human life. We are not meant to be alone. We are not built for silence. We are built for each other. We are built for conversation and laughter and argument and storytelling and the sound of someone else breathing in the same room. That is not a luxury. That is a requirement for survival. And when we take that away from our oldest people, when we leave them in silent houses with nothing but the television and the ticking of a clock, we are not just being neglectful. We are being cruel, even if we don't mean to be. If you are an older person watching this, I want to speak to you now. I want you to hear my voice, and I want you to know that I see you. I see the empty chair across from you. I see the phone that sits silent on the counter. I see the way you turn the television on first thing in the morning just so the house doesn't feel so dead. I see you. And I want you to know that your loneliness is not your fault. You did not fail. You did not push people away. The world shifted, and it left you behind, and that is not something you caused, and it is not something you deserve. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be visited. You deserve to have someone look you in the eyes and say, "Tell me a story." And if nobody is doing that for you right now, I need you to know that it does not mean you are forgotten. It means the people who love you are lost in their own noise, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is pick up that phone yourself. Call your daughter, call your old friend, call anyone, and say, "I just needed to hear a voice today." That is not weakness, that is courage, and you have more courage in you than you know. You survived everything life threw at you. You can survive the silence too. But you don't have to do it alone. Reach out. Let someone in. The world still has room for your voice, and somebody out there needs to hear it just as much as you need to speak it.